it's being achieved is
I
poor.
call the honourable member Ian McKelvey.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
No, I'm going to call Ian Lees-Galloway.
Mr. Chairman. I would like to pick up where my colleague Charles Chevelle left off regarding the supplementary order paper in the name of Anne Tolley that amends the Corrections Amendment Bill. And of course the history to this is that the Minister at the time, Judith Collins, announced that she was going to implement a ban on smoking tobacco in prisons, and despite warnings from the opposition and from other groups that should she wish to effect such a ban, that ought be best done with legislation, Judith Collins knew best. Judith Collins displayed her usual level of arrogance and carried on and implemented the ban. Interestingly, she had no power, because she didn't change the legislation, she had no power to implement a ban. Miraculously, all the prison managers across New Zealand simultaneously declared a ban in their own prisons. And what the High Court determined was that it was those prison managers who acted outside of the law, that the Corrections Department acted illegally at the behest of the Minister of Corrections. So Judith Collins, I stated in the debate last night that Judith Collins acted illegally. I actually think it's worse than that. Judith Collins required public sector employees to act illegally. And that is what this supplementary order paper that Anne Tolley has brought to the House is attempting to clean up, that appalling mess that Judith Collins has created through her own gung-ho, Judith knows best actions, whereby she has required the public servants to act outside of the law. And of course, all that it's done is create a situation where a particularly notorious prisoner has been able to bring a case against the government. That has subjected the New Zealand taxpayer to the possibility of having to pay out to this gentleman who has brought this case. Well, my colleagues say he's no gentleman. I use that term in the broadest possible sense. But this all comes back to the way that Judith Collins and her National Party colleagues approach governing in New Zealand, which is that they seem to forget that they are elected, and that we have a democracy and that we have a democratic process and that we believe in the rule of law, and and Judith Collins in particular just acts as though she has the right to be a dictator in New Zealand, and that she can just carry on and do whatever she likes, whether the law allows her to or not. Of course, that is not the case, and when she acts in that way, then a retrospective amendment like this has to be brought to the House. Now, even just looking at the way this supplementary order paper operates, it actually seeks to amend part of the original Corrections Act. It amends Clause 4, but it amends the section that refers to the substances which are specifically banned in prisons, and drugs and alcohol are specifically mentioned. Now, knowing that the only way to implement a ban on those substances was through legislation, Judith Collins should have been acutely aware of the fact that the only way she could have implemented the ban that she wanted to was through legislation. It was absolutely obvious to the Minister. It is obvious through the mechanism which is being used in this supplementary order paper that legislation was always required. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe she is the Justice Minister. Well, you'd think that the Justice Minister, a former lawyer, would be aware of these matters, but it seems that her arrogance got in the way of her knowledge and clouded her judgment in this case. But, Mr. Chairman, my colleague Charles Chauvel outlined the reasons why we do not believe this supplementary order paper will be effective. But because of the fact that it is retrospective, because of the fact that it is an inadequate attempt to tidy up a mess caused by Judith Collins, we are unable to support it, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Let me have a look. Hang on. Cleaned in two. I call the Honourable Phil Goff.
Chairman, thank you very much.